All right, today we are talking about the reports of Alex Golesh being the new head hog for Arkansas football. I'm Ethan Kahn, the producer of Little Rock Arc. I'm joined by Rowdy Barabo from our digital team, and we're both avid college football fans. So, Rowdy, what do you make of this news?
Well, I saw the news. It came out really early this morning that 1037 The Buzz's Trey Schaap put out information that he has his sources reported to him that Alex Golesh has accepted a job offer to be the next head coach at the University of Arkansas. I think it's a really good hire, man. I think, if I just think you look at what Golesh has done, not only as a head coach, but a coordinator going back to his time at Tennessee, and then even an assistant going back to Iowa State, Illinois. It seems like everywhere this guy has been, teams have turned around, and they've been successful programs. And during his time there, I think it's a great hire. It doesn't exactly address the need of on defense, but that's okay. I think if you can eliminate some fumbles on offense. How many more wins do you have this year if you just eliminate fumbles? So I think Golesh, being the offensive mastermind that he is, I think it's a great hire for the Arkansas
Yeah,
University.
absolutely. I think it's a slam dunk in Arkansas's realm. As much as people wanted it, I don't think Arkansas was a real place for a James Franklin, a John Gruden.
Lane
Unfortunately,
or I'm sorry, not Lane Kiffin, Rhett Lashley of the SMU. He was an early name that people threw out there.
yeah, exactly. So the names I had put on my board as people that were realistic for Arkansas that would be good for the program were Eric Morris. We just heard the news that he's going to Oklahoma State, and Alex Golesh. So if these reports turn out to be true, this is huge for the program.
Yeah, and I'll go back a little bit. I'm actually kind of laughing about it right now. October 2nd, I published a story. Five potential candidates for Arkansas coaching job. I remember I had to throw one crazy name out there, one John Gruden, because people were talking about Gruden coming back to the SEC possibly, and there's other jobs open there, of course. But you had Gruden. Petrino was obviously one because he was named the interim. Let's see who else. Rhett Lashley, of course, and then he denied, or reports came out that he wasn't as big of a fan. Glenn Schumann, Georgia's defensive coordinator, and Gus Malzahn, two other names. But if looking at Morris and looking at Golesh, if it wasn't one of those two guys, I would have say try to go with a guy like Glenn Schumann. But then you got to ask the question, how realistic of a option was that for Schumann? We don't know if Schumann's going to go anywhere. Schumann could still stay at Georgia. But yeah, I mean, I think Eric Morris or Alex Golesh, John Summerall. There was a ton of names out there that Arkansas could. I think they can have success in year one under this leadership, and I'm really excited to see what Golesh can bring to the Razorbacks. He's done a really good job recruiting, and that's a tough place to recruit South Florida. Whenever you've got the University of Miami, Florida, Florida State, that's a tough state to recruit.
Yeah, I have a note that he has the four highest ranked recruiting classes in the history of South Florida.
Wow.
That program there, and as you mentioned, it is a tough place to recruit. So if he can get that talent to South Florida, I feel confident that he can get some good Dallas talent, Oklahoma talent, Arkansas talent.
Keep those kids home.
Get them up on the hill.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is always something that is a bit of makes people wary about hiring a coach from a non-power 4 team is, are they able to compete with SEC teams? But we have a couple of instances of Golesh teams going against teams. They went into the swamp, they beat Florida this year, and then they had a home and home, I think it was the last 2 years, with Alabama, including a Nick Saban Alabama team. Played them really tough. I think that game in Tampa against Alabama was like 3-3 going into the fourth quarter. So he can coach against these big time SEC schools.
Yeah, and let's go a little bit back to when he was a coordinator at an SEC school for Tennessee. I mean, golly, man, that Tennessee team in 2022 was fun to watch. If I'm not mistaken, they put up a program best for about 47 points a game, led the SEC. They led the country in a lot of different offensive categories that year, and that was under Golesh's leadership. I think having him back in the SEC, and honestly, Arkansas doesn't. I mean, they may not take too much of a step back offensively. They really did have a good offense this year outside of turnovers. They were able to get yards. They were able to put points on the board. And I think Golesh is going to take the Hogs to the next step. of winning these games. You know, how many times? I mean, was it the one-score games Arkansas would be at the time would have been 8-2 if all the one-score games were reversed.
Yeah.
How many? And like I said earlier, how many of those were because of a turnover that ended the game for them? You know, close games. I think Golesh is the right guy to help Arkansas get over that hump.
Yeah. Now the next question, if he is the guy, the next question on everyone's mind is who he will bring in for that defensive coordinator, because ultimately that was a big part of the downfall for this year's team. Just could not get those stops.
Right.
So,
oh yeah, no, I think that's the big question, and I don't even know. I can't name anybody off the top of my head. I just think there's a ton of different names out there. You know, obviously you've got coordinators that are trying to get head coaching jobs. You know, for instance, Schumann may be a guy that goes to USF now for his first head coaching job. But is Arkansas going to get Glenn Schumann? Are you going to get a lateral move at a guy that's at debatably a better program? No. But I will say, I trust Alex Golesh. You know, I've watched USF from afar, being a fan of teams in the Florida area of college football teams. And so watching USF, really, and have an outstanding year this year, I would trust him to make the right decision as far as hiring a defensive coordinator. I don't think he'll, a lot of coaches, they want to hire guys that they've had before who weren't very successful, and that's where nepotism kind of gets them. Mm-hmm. We've seen that in times in the past. Oh, it's bit Auburn before. It's bit the University of Miami before. I don't think Arkansas can afford more nepotism, I think. And so getting in a guy that is kind of fresh, that would be the right call as far as defensive hire.
I think another thing you have to like is, again, it's been a phenomenal season for USF, but they are on the outside of that playoff picture, which means he can get to Arkansas quicker. It's not waiting around for a Tulane team that might be in the playoff. John Summerall in the mix with that team till probably mid-December. Golesh can get in right away, start recruiting and building for next year.
Yeah, and I'll ask you this. Do you think, we were talking about Eric Morris earlier. I know he was a name that was kind of on the hot board for Arkansas. Do you think Arkansas maybe saw what Oklahoma State did earlier this week and was like, okay, maybe we need to go out and get a guy, And so do you think that's why they chose Golesh?
Yeah, it's been surprising to me that these announcements are being made before rivalry weekend, where the regular season isn't even over.
Right.
But that college football calendar is really year-round, and those top programs really need that guy in December, January to get their team on the ground and get the players in the program that they want.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think we're going to start seeing that a little bit more. If you're a coach that, you're not really fighting for playoffs, you might sacrifice the last game of the year. You might sacrifice the conference championship. But, nonetheless, I'm pretty excited. I think it's a really good hire. I think he can get Arkansas to a bowl in year one. Like I said, I think there were just this many things holding them back this year. And frankly, this many things that may be the difference in Bobby Petrino being the head coach this year,
Right.
So it's, it's crazy how the year has transpired. It's been a talented team. Just can't finish, and I think Golesh is it will be the guy that get Arkansas to finish games with a W in their column.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting times here in the state. We will keep you updated online, and Jack and Sully will have much more in the newscast tonight, so stay tuned.
Thank you guys for watching.